Hello friends, welcome back to CCSP Certified channel. My name is Rag and I have 14 years of industry experience. I have recently cleared CCSP exam and decided to prepare this video series on most important topics, as soundness of concept is very important to clear any of the ISC2 exam. So this video series will not only helpful in the CCSP but other ISC2 exam and your professional life. Apart from this, I am starting a dedicated page for CCSP exam. You can write me on ccsp-certified@gmail.com if you want to enroll for the same. So we jump to the topic of the day, that is IAM authentication part. In previous lecture, we have covered IAM identification part. Today is also most important topic, this authentication. And as I mentioned, there will be 12 to 15 questions from this topic to video series. So topic 1 was cryptography, topic 2 is IAM portion, and as I mentioned, I will be starting my batches soon. So there will be 2 new batches in January month. One will be weekdays and one will be weekend. You can get more detail from my profile page or previous videos. So I jump to the basic recap quickly, then go to the topic of the day. So we have seen that IAM is most important and is part of domain 1, domain 4, domain 5, and there are different topics or different concepts in domain 1, 4, 5, but CCSP asks questions based on the concepts, not from the domain wise, so we are covering them separately. IEEE that we have seen: identification, authentication, authorization and auditing. This is the most important concept of IAM. Identification part compromise of provisioning, deprovisioning, that we have covered in the last video lecture. Today we will cover the authentication. So let's jump to that. So authentication, there are 3 important questions there: something you have, something you know, and something you are. So something you have is like you have an ATM card, you have a mobile application, you have a passport, you have a driving license. This is something you have, something being issued to you, something is being given to you. Something you know, so you know PIN of the ATM number, or you know the password of the mobile application, or anything you remember, any passcode you remember, any puzzle like Khulja Sim Sim is something you know. Then something you are, so this is something, is a biometric verification like your retina, voice, something you are defined this. So authentication is performed based on either you have something you have, either you show your passport when you go to airport, or something you know, either you give your some password when you enter like Khulja Sim Sim, or something you are like you show your biometric retina, voice command to enter a premise. So authentication happen via these 3 factors. And there is a MFA and adaptive MFA. So it's a very important concept. MFA is a combination of 2 or more independent credentials. So if you see the independent credentials, so like when you go to ATM machine, you insert your ATM, then you insert your PIN. So it is an example of MFA, because you are giving the ATM your ATM card and your PIN. But if you go inside ATM and they ask for your fingerprint and retina, it will not be MFA example. MFA should be anything between these 2, at least these 2, can be 3 also. But multi-factor authentication is something you have, something you know, something you are. Out of these 3, 2 must be there. So if someone asks my retina scan and voice scan, it is not a 2-factor authentication, it is not a MFA, it is a single factor authentication, because it is part of something you are. Now second concept is adaptive authentication. It is also called as a risk-based authentication. It is a new concept and very important concept. So it is an advanced form of MFA, where the user's risk factors is being used to identify whether you should go for the second factor or multi-factor or not. So this is that you might have seen when you log into your bank website, HDFC or ICICI, and when you are logging off the hours, like in night 2 AM, or from the location which is not trusted, like you might be logging from Rajasthan, but this time you're logging from Karnataka, or you are logging from non-trusted device like mobile or phone. So it asks for the second factor that verify you are the right person. Someone might have stolen your password, but the second factor will be a adaptive base. So based on the, because this is the risk, high risk that user password is compromised and login from distance location. So it is asked for the second factor. This is the adaptive authentication. So MFA is every time the second factor will come. Adaptive is a risk-based authentication, risk-based second factor. Now we come to single sign-on. Single sign-on is very important concept in industry because knowing password for each application is very tedious job, and we frequently forgot the password. There must be a central system whose password and ID I remember, and they should pass the token or cookies. So other application website should get the auto login with the token provided by the centralized system. The centralized system, it can be on-premise, can be off-premise. So enterprise single sign-on is the one in which the single sign-on happen within the application in the enterprise. If it is external or outside or cross-domain, it is called as a federated single sign-on. So that will cover in the next slide, but as a disclaimer, all the images will be for the educational purpose. We claim no copyright of this. So federated identity. So FIM, we will cover the FIM in the next video lecture as a separate, because it's very important concept, but quickly I cover because we are going through the concept in continuation. So federated is allow access across organization, like cross domain single sign-on. So I can log into Gmail by logging via my company account. So rather than I create my account in Gmail, I can use the Gmail services or Google services simply by logging to my my system, my network, my organization network. So this happens via the federated identity management, and there is a circle of trust need to be set up. There is a just-in-time provisioning also concept there. So we'll cover the important protocol used in the FIM, SAML or OIDC, and just very important concept that that we might be familiar, but we might not be using them in the right terminology. And CCSP asked the question, let's say they ask if it is a cross-domain single sign-on, whether it is a federated SSO, it is a SSO, it is a federated identity management. They may ask similar type of questions. We have seen this in past, and I will show in some example also. So you should be very familiar. It is known as a federated identity management, not federated SSO. And there are two parties in the circle of trust. One is identity provider, one is service provider, and it can be multiple identity provider, multiple service provider in the trust, and it can be SP initiated, IDP initiated. This diagram is a SP initiated, where user reaches to service provider, and service provider sending user to identity provider for authentication and post authentication granting the access. So we'll cover these protocols in the next video lecture, and the type of FIM also will cover in detail, but it will be cross certification, where when identity provider and service provider certify each other. It can be proxy, where the third parties verify identity providers and service provider, and the web of trust, when both service provider can work as identity provider and identity provider can work as a service provider. Now I will cover some CCSP exam questions and question bank questions related to these concepts. So first is, which of the following protocol is most applicable to the identification process aspect of the identity access management process? So identification we have covered in the last video series, but just in the same recap, SSL we have seen it is part of the data in use. IPsec protocols also not related to identification, and then this AIDT is more a distractor. So LDAP is a lightweight directory access protocols that store the identities and can be used for identification purpose. We'll cover this in the coming video lecture, LDAP and other directory services. The second question is, which of the following is true about the two-person identity integrity? So that we have seen that when we perform the authentication, if we expect that someone perform the authentication with the use of multiple factors, but all the factors are as of now belongs to same person only. There can be two persons to make the system more robust or more integrity by having sharing the secret or sharing the password between the two persons. The real example is the bank lockers. when you go to banks, one key is your key and one key is the operator key, and when both keys got inserted, then only your locker get open. So someone try to steal your key, still they have to convince the bank person or operator to commit a crime. So it forces all employees to distract one another. Distrust? No. It requires two different identity access management system? No. It forces collusion for unauthorized access. So when you want to perform an unauthorized access, you have to make a trust between. So not a single person can perform this fraud. There will be two persons. So there must be collusion should happen between the unauthorized for the unauthorized access. So this is concept more of the authentication concept. And when Jim logs into a system, his password is compared to a hash value stored in the database. What is this process? It's a very simple question. When the ID get compared, it is known as identification. When the password get compared, it is known as authentication. So authentication, something you know, and that's the password, and that is getting authenticated, then only the access will be granted. This is part of something you know. What two important factor does accountability for a access control relies on? So since when you are identifying the person, what we are doing, we are making sure that the person is the right person who performing operations. So we are doing the accountability. We are ensuring the person who is logging is accountable, and later he can not deny that he did not log in because he is using the password. So first we are doing the identification, and then authorization. No, there is no authorization as of now. Authentication and authorization, no. Identification and authentication. So when I am doing the identification ID and the password authentication, then I will be responsible that I have the one who has logged in and performed that operation. So it is the identification authentication is used for the accountability to be established. And the last lecture for last question for this video. This type of question that CCSP asked, we have taken from CCSP question bank. They ask very lengthy question, but answer is concept is same. So you are the IT security subject matter expert for a OPS collection that researches and archive old music. If you create a federated identity management structure, FIM, for all the parties in the collective using a third-party certification model, who will be federated service provider in this structure. So we have seen that FIM can be of three types. One is cross certification, one is proxy, and one is wave of trust. So here they are doing third-party verification system. This is a proxy-based system. So here he is asking in the collective using a third-party collection model, who will be federated service provider. So it is asking about the service provider, not identity provider. So third party can be an identity provider, which is a proxy case also. Proxy and third party, both options are rolled out because they are the identity provider. The cloud provider will play no role, so it cannot be. All the members will be work as a service provider. So as we have seen in the flow, in the circle of trust, there will be a multiple identity provider, multiple service provider, and service provider one who give the service, who give the service to the user, access to the user, and identity provider who perform the identification process. So it can be a cross certification where each other do a certification of each other. Can be a third party who doing the authentication authorization for on your behalf. It can be web of trust. So each service provider can work as identity provider. So if they ask what is the type of identity provider, the answer will be proxy. But if I ask who is the service provider, then all the members will be service provider. So thank you. This is the video lecture content as of now. We will cover FIM and other concept in next video lecture. And as I mentioned, I am starting new batches. Please join them if you are interested to be a CSP certified professional.